Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Today I'm joined by Russell Boyce. At some point, Boyce, we may also get a special guest appearance from the one and only Kevin Graham, who will certainly be with us on the post-match. We're playing Livingston. It's away. Tony Macaroni. They're sitting bottom of the league with a point. Not a win to their name. Yet, I don't go in here expecting to win 3-4-5-0 because we've got a really poor record at the Tony Macaroni, haven't we? So what's your thoughts? First and foremost, we'll run through and analyse the team line. What's your thoughts on today's game?
It's going to be very interesting because obviously there is a surprise inclusion in the lineup, which I know you are probably alluding to there, and we'll get to that. I think the fact of the matter is let's just get 3 points. I'm not bothered how we do it. I think you're absolutely right. Focusing on 2, 3, 4 goal wins at a place where we find notoriously difficult is pointless. I would be happy. I would take 1-0 right now or whatever it may be in Bolingoli land. That might be the equivalent of a 7-6, but I'm happy with that. Just as long as we scrape past today and get our first away win of the season in the league and get those points on the board and stay in touch and distance, that's what matters to me right now. The performance I'm finding a wee bit secondary, if I'm honest, right now with a match like this.
It's interesting, Russell, because obviously we've got quite a healthy WhatsApp group. There's a lot of contributors to ACSOM. At the last count, we're almost up at 20 all in when you look at the design and the videographers and the various contributors who some are firmly in place every single week. Others come in when they are required and when they're able. So we've got about 20 people involved, and I'm not going to say there's two camps. But you made an interesting point there about going and getting the result. I watched the interview with Ange Postecoglou after the European game there at the weekend, during the week. And there was one thing, because I came away and obviously said he was up against it. He really was up against it when you consider everything that was kind of riding against him. The fact that, he is once again having to play people out of position. He's picking a team when there's 10 absentees. The captain of the side's played less than 10 games for Celtic. It goes on and on and on. Before you get to the bench, where we have no attacking options whatsoever, you've got 3 guys sitting on the bench in a European game who's never played a competitive game of football for Celtic. There's another one who's only played 2 games, 1 start. All this kind of stuff was piling up, Russell. So I had a bit of sympathy for Ange Postecoglou and Celtic the other night. But one thing that does concern me a wee bit, and I'm going to say it to yourself because I know that you'll agree with this, because you are on the other side of the fence. You're more of you're looking at the situation saying, no, you know what, it's about time we started to string some results together here. Yeah. And he said something after the game where he was asked about the fact that it was a 4-3 game and it was great for the neutral, etc., all the usual cliches. And he turned around and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he would rather that than draw nothing each. Now, I'm looking at that comment in isolation, and I have not been very critical of Ange Postecoglou since he's come in. I don't compare where he is just now to where Neil Lennon was last year because it's a completely different set of circumstances. And that worries me a bit. I'm telling you, that worries me about that statement because the way I'm looking at this Europa League group, before we get to the Livingston game today, the way I'm looking at it is if we can pick up anything from our travels, and we take care of the games at home. And I'm not going to be so blasé to say we're going to get 3 wins at home. I would expect a win against Ferencváros. After looking at what happened against Betis, and I know they weren't at full strength, I'm not expecting a win, but I'd be going for a win at home against Betis. And then who knows what's going to happen against Bayer Leverkusen, who've just taken the lead against Stuttgart today, away from home after 2 minutes. So when you're away from home, you think, well, Ferencváros, possibly, get a result over Hungary, possibly. And if we get a point, if we get a draw in one of the other games, then we're getting to that 10-point kind of stage, Russell. Yes. So for me, I would have personally rather had a 0-0, no-score bore. Now, am I wrong? I mean, surely it's not about the style, it's about the substance. So where are you on this? Because I've not had a chance to discuss this with you, Russell.
I've heard some wonderful theories in the past week. We've been told it's fun football, that the whole group stage itself is too early for us, but we're not to focus on the league, we're to focus on Europe, because that's how you become a bigger club. But in the exact same conversation on ACSOM, what was said was that this group stage, the whole group stage, all 6 matches have came too early. So to me, you're running out of excuses. This is now scraping the barrel. I thought the 0-0 comment by Ange was quite insightful as to, obviously, I think you're like me in the sense that you're like, that's a point on the board though away from home, which we don't tend to do in Europe very often. Secondly, I thought it was irrelevant because we were 2-0 up. Never mind 0-0. We had a 2-goal lead there, which we blew in 20 minutes of madness. And I thought the more it should have been, well, I didn't want, if he'd said something like, I would rather we carried on playing the way we were, that got us in a 2-0 lead, than sacrifice my principles. We went down that line, but the 0-0 thing was a completely redundant comment because we were 2-0 up. And actually, we started extremely well. It was a good opening 25 minutes. But the only thing I would caveat that was, thankfully, we've got a quality goalkeeper now. Yeah. You know, because Joe Hart, even during our spell of dominance,
5 saves. 5 saves.
And that one, the one in particular, I think it was from the corner that he does at the back post was top. And I think it's funny that, you know, Barkas, who we were told in the summer was going to be, you know, he's very much an Ange style player. I think he's 4th choice now, so we can put that one to bed. And now it's good
easy.
You used the word.
Yep. You used the word insightful, and I'm not sure if that was in terms of inciting an argument or insightful offering insight. It could have been either or, I'm not too sure. But it takes us on to today's game. And again, there's a huge discussion about squad management, Russell, and rotation. Now, that in itself would be difficult when you look at some of the areas of the park. For example, up front, we thought perhaps Giakoumakis might have been on the bench today. He's not made it. So you go with a Yeti up front. And by the way, well-deserved. I know he's not perfect. He's absolutely not perfect. But what I want is I want people to contribute. So if you're a second choice or a third choice, I want you to contribute when you're thrown in. And that's the reason why, you know, Swansea City were banging on about the brilliance of Olivier and Cham, and the comments under that, you know, you just have to read through that to realise the reason he's not at Celtic is he wasn't contributing. The aforementioned Barkas, he's not contributing. So what you've got now is you've got a player in a Yeti who I don't think last season was contributing enough, and now he is. So when you get Kyogo back, when Giakoumakis comes back to fitness and starts to play and get bled into the team, you've got a player in a Yeti that wasn't there. He wasn't giving you any option. So he starts today, and again, I just hope he continues to score because he definitely is a confidence player, isn't he?
Well, definitely. I remember we were talking a couple of weeks ago about 108 opportunities in 3 home matches we'd created in the league. Right? And we were saying that's staggering, and obviously the double-digit patter came out and all that, but we were actually looking at the chances converted, and I think Tony got a rough time for it. I think he'd said, you know, we need to be even more clinical, particularly he was referring to Kyogo, I think, but you were going, when you look at how many goals we're scoring compared to opportunities created, was like, yeah, maybe someone in those games now you think might have been able to make a bit of an impact. He's maybe just, he's one of those players who, his all-round game's maybe not going to get universal praise, and he's never going to be, you know, like doing the clever, you know, runs that Kyogo does off the ball. Even if Kyogo's not going to get the pass, he's dragging defenders about left, right and centre. But yeah, he comes alive with rebounds, layoffs, and just those moments in the 6-yard box. He's took his opportunity with both hands. I'm actually really happy for him. I think we spoke about it as well, Tom Rogic's physique changing this season.
Yeah.
You've got to give Ayeti the same praise, Paul, in my opinion, for looking, I think his body shape looks completely different to what it did last year, if I'm honest to you. And if he's doubled his efforts in training and wants to make this work and is buying into the manager's philosophies, and when he's getting his opportunity, taking them with 3 goals in his last 2 appearances, I'm more than happy and more than content with Ayeti being in the mix, challenging for second choice striker right now. That's absolutely fine. And I think as well, creating a dilemma for the manager of going 2 up top, maybe in some home games. I'm off, as I've said before, I find it, but we used to start 3 up front under O'Neill, you know? And I think at times, if we're already punishing teams at home domestically, and we are, I think there's an argument to go, well, if Ayeti's not doing anything wrong, and I know we're away today, by the way, but if we were at home, then maybe there is an argument to go, well, don't take Ayeti out or put Ayeti back in, but play him along with Kyogo and see how he fares, because I think he's certainly still got the same instinct for goal that he showed in his opening salvos for Celtic when he first signed. I think it was 6 and 7 or something like that, but at one point he was averaging a goal every 43 minutes. So
You know, that's one thing I mentioned time and time again about Edward. I never ever thought Edward played brilliantly up front on his own either, but those days are gone now, and in the past they must remain. There's a player that you will recall, but it just, again, it's a wee throwback, but there was a player at Celtic in the 1990s, if I may indulge me.
Yes.
Tommy Coyne. Now, Tommy Coyne,
oh yeah,
I thought was a fabulous striker, right? And he's the type of guy. The best example of this was the Scottish Cup game where we beat them 1-0. And Tommy Coyne, I'm not even sure to this day what part of his body he scored the goal with. He stands up and then John Brown boots him into the net. That was the game afterwards when Billy McNeil's getting interviewed live on the telly. I think it was BBC or STV, and Terry Butcher about kicks the door in. I don't know if you've ever seen the footage. Butcher walks in, he's raging, he boots the door. McNeil makes a comment, we beat them 1-0. Tommy Coyne was one of the guys, Russell, who there was a couple of elements to his game that if he had them, he would have been a top class striker. He was still very, very good, and I really did like him for Celtic. He was prolific for Dundee. He was prolific for Motherwell when he came back to Scotland. You know, he'd started off, I think, at Clydebank, got a big move to Dundee United. It didn't work out, but he's part of the European games that United are famous for under Jim McLean. You know, you look at the bench, Tommy Coyne's part and parcel with that squad. And I'm not comparing him entirely with Yeti, but there's a couple of elements of that. That goal the other night that he scores against Betis, he just throws his body at it. I think it's his chest. The ref thought, or the linesman thought it's hit his arm. There's a VAR check and all the rest of it. He doesn't care if it's a beautiful goal. He doesn't want to score the Hollywood box office goal, Russell. He just wants to put the ball in the net. And he throws his body at it. There are other elements to his game. I don't think he's got blistering pace. Neither did Tommy Coyne. His hold-up play, he gets criticised for that. His link-up play, often he gets criticised for that. Stretching the back line, I can't see him running down a ball at the corner flag. I don't think he's that type of player. But there are elements of his game that if you play to his strengths, he will get us goals, particularly domestically. But I was really chuffed with him the other night. He scores a goal. He wins the penalty. Very, very cute winning of that penalty as well, though. You know, it was brilliantly done. And he scored a second goal that was disallowed. And it was offside. So good to see Yeti starting again. Hopefully he can build on that. Boycey, you mentioned Hart. How great is it just to know that when the team lines come out, you're not worrying about the goalie?
Yeah, I think Hart's validated everything that we were concerned about at the start of the season, to be perfectly honest to you. I think Joe Hart's came in and he's first and foremost a goalkeeper that likes to try and keep the ball out the net, albeit I think the defenders in front of him at times have let him down. He almost looked exasperated with one of the goals midweek. Like my takeaway from it was his reaction was like, "Oh, not again!" or "I seen this coming," or something like that. He seemed a wee bit exasperated at that point, but again, I don't blame him for any of the goals we conceded, and I'm grateful for the ones that he kept out the net. He keeps things simple when he's got the ball at his feet, and I certainly think it puts to bed arguments that we needed, Mateus and goals, you know what I mean, spreading it out for the back. I don't think it needed to be players like that. I think as long as they've got a bit of composure about them, and that's the thing, these guys are on a football training ground every day. I'd like to think they can trap a ball and pass it 6 yards, but I don't want them to be the guys, trying to be overly clever in that regard. Give it to the defenders, and I certainly think Welsh has a passing range to him. Carter Vickers certainly looks comfortable on the ball, particularly in his home debut. I thought he looked really composed on the ball, whilst also mixing the ugly side. So Joe Hart, for me, is just his reassurance at the back. He gives a bit of composure. He gives a wealth of experience. And I also think what I like the most is he's a talker. And Barkas, to me, when he was playing, the one thing that seemed really apparent was he wasn't much of a voice at all.
Not at all, absolutely.
No, and I think we're getting more and more leaders at the back. 4 out the back 5 when you include the keeper were internationals on Thursday, and I think that's maybe where my patience is running out, where, we're still weak at the back. Maybe they've not had the time yet, and I need to be more patient with that aspect. But there's a wealth of experience now there, over 100 caps between all 4 of them. So it's time, and obviously Joe Hart's got the majority of them. I'm lucky to have him.
Looking at the defence, this is where there are surprises, and we've not mentioned what's the story with Bolingoli at left back. I was watching that game and, looking at the lineup going into it, and you know, a lot of the problems we've had, particularly in Europe over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and we know, you know, we've had a really poor run as it's been in the Champions League, is playing players out of position. I mean, Beaton's on the bench today. He is the only option for a centre-half if we've got an issue, right? So again, you're throwing somebody in out of position. So as much as I think Juranovic has it in him to switch to the left when necessary, I'm looking forward today, Russell, seeing him playing in his favoured right-back position, and we're playing a left-back at left-back, which is rather absurd, but it's Bolingoli. It's Bolingoli. Now, he's a guy who's not even in the European squad, so some people have questioned, why is he playing? Why is X, Y, or Z not playing there instead? The point has been made, Liam Scales, yes, he can play left-back, but he has played mainly left side of a centre-back or a left wing-back, so not just, you know, a left, although I'm pretty sure he can do an inverted left-back role. Bolly starts. So the question I would ask, Russell, is why?
Very interesting. And I think the one I feel most sorry for, I think Liam Scales is someone that right now has been playing, so he's definitely up to speed match fitness-wise, but perhaps there's a bedding-in process when someone's made the step up from, no disrespect to Shamrock Rovers, but when you're moving from that to Celtic, even day-to-day training will be a standard of football. I'm going to envisage, you know, far, far higher than what he's used to. Now, that might just be a bedding-in process, and Ange's almost protecting him right now. Again, you know, if the result doesn't go our way today, and someone like Liam Scales has started at Almondvale on a plastic pitch for his first ever start, we would say, was that a bit harsh on Scales, you know, throwing him into that sort of match? Montgomery, though, for me, is interesting because he's been making appearances. He's been impressing, I think, as well when he's played. I'm not quite sure how he'll be feeling right now at that one. I think more for Montgomery than I do the Scales one right now, even though, by the way, I've liked what I've seen of Scales in the YouTube montages and all that. But I definitely think Bolingoli being flung in there is a wild card move. And I'm not sure, again, I don't want to preempt that we'll have a negative result today, but if he does, that is going to be the player, unless he has an absolute belter of a game. But, you know, you can imagine him being the fall guy, can't you? And there's just been he's not had any minutes this season, has he? He played 13 minutes, I think you'd said, in one pre-season friendly. Now, how's this guy up to speed to start games that James McCarthy isn't?
Well, today.
Yeah, oh, well, I know, but, you know, we've discussed that, right? But, you know, I'm glad he is starting today. But I've got to say, the Bolingoli one goes against, and we've discussed this, in fact, a year ago. What does match fit mean? Because there's so much contradictions with it now at Celtic, it's unreal. Players seem to take so long to come back from injuries at times. They think, well, will they ever be fit? I think, obviously, Lee Griffiths was a huge case in point with that, as was Ayeti last season. Now, this season, you've got Bolingoli out from the cold into an away match that, let's not get, I don't want to be over dramatic and say must win, but I certainly think if we don't win it, you know, it'll be, you know, I think there'll be a bit of dissent, you know, finally happening, and I don't want that. I mean, let's be abundantly clear here. Let's get a positive result. How Bolingoli influences that, I'm not seeing it right now from my point of view. I don't think it was a necessary risk, Paul.
Well, I'm going to ask a few questions in relation to this. We all know what he did. We've all got our opinion on it. He was sent out on loan, partly as a result of that. He's obviously been in Neil Lennon's thoughts early in the season because he's come on against Kelly away from home. And obviously that's what started the issue because he had had a clandestine meeting with someone elsewhere prior to that game. If he comes in today, though, right, and Ange has waved his magic wand and sprinkled his stardust on him and he gets a performance out of him, Ange Postecoglou's then in a situation where, again, he's got more options. How difficult or how easy would it be at that stage, Russell, for the Celtic supporters to say, well, I forgive him?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think Bolingoli, what he did was shocking, right? We're not going to condone it. I think there's been examples since then, maybe at other clubs. You should get Lawrence on for this, but like there's been examples at other clubs of players absolutely flagrantly abusing the rule book as well and abusing their position as a professional footballer, really, because they already had a lot of perks that, you know, the normal guy didn't. You know, you were in that studio on your own basically for 12 months, Paul, you know, whilst they still were able to go to their work in a normal sort of environment. And I think other players have been guilty of, if not the same, very similar crimes to what Bolingoli was guilty of, and not being judged as harshly by their support or the media as what perhaps Bolingoli got. Does it take away from what he did? No. Will he be able to be forgiven? Football fans are fickle, Paul. If we're getting results and he's putting in good performances, all will be forgotten. I'm positive of that. I think there was a mountain made out of it at the start of the season, but that's also because we were feeling like, I even think as early as that, something's not right in the camp. Something's not right. So when something else was happening like that, it was double down, you could say, on the negativity around it. So I think he'll be absolute. If he plays well and we get a good result and then he starts again, it's just the process to him getting to the team. I think there has to be a question mark over that, because surely he would be a better bet right now to start against a tricky team away from home if he had minutes on his legs this season. The fact he doesn't, it does seem out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know what he's doing in training, but he must be impressing to one heck of a level, and Ange must have full faith in his fitness as well.
I mean, when I seen the team line popping up on the Celtic Twitter page, I honestly had to maximise the player who was featured on it to make sure it was Bolingoli, and there he was in all his glory. Morning glory, some might say. So some might say, wow, there's another one. Right, so Scott Webster, Ajeti has to play another 90 minutes. That's another good point. He does. There is no options for Ajeti on the bench, just as there are no natural centre-halves in terms of options on the bench. So Beaton, if he comes on, he may well be coming in to play centre-half. We've also got Red Scotland making a point. I'm bringing it up so that we can't forget this. I'm getting a Yeti tattoo if he scores again today, and I want to see photographic proof of that as well. Red Scotland, you are on the chat most days, so I'd love to see that.
Yes.
Absolutely would love to see it. You mentioned as well, McCarthy. I'm not going to labour the centre-half situation because I'm a big fan of Welsh. I don't think there's an issue with that. I don't think Starfelt's been dropped either. I just think it's squad rotation.
No, I agree.
McCarthy, you mentioned McCarthy. He makes his first start today. I'm not sure if he can play a full 90. I guess looking at the bench, there are options. I'm not sure if you would want to bring on Soro after his performance the other night. There are options. Beaton, maybe give him a run out, check him out in the central midfield position, because it looks as though to me Ange wants to absolutely maximise his squad here. He wants to have a look at Bolingoli. He might want to look at Beaton in a midfield, a deeper role in the midfield if we are comfortable enough at some stage. So McCarthy starts. I want your thoughts on that, but also Turnbull and Rogic start again after another 90-minute performance against Betis during the week.
Well, it's quite incredible. I'll quickly do the Turnbull and Rogic one, because these are two players. Last season we were doing Turnbull bingo on what minute he'd be sent off, remember, on Twitter, when we just had to find solace in something, because the results weren't going our way. So I was actually doing Turnbull bingo on Twitter. People were putting in what minute they thought he'd be subbed. Rogic, you didn't need to do that because you knew it'd only be 60 minutes. It would be, and he'd be hooked. They're now both playing 90 minutes all the time. So fair play if he's managed to get, an extra 30% fitness levels out of them or whatever. But when you look at their history of performing for 90 minutes, you can't help but think one, if not both of them, may need to be taken off in the second half if we're sitting pretty. As for McCarthy, I thought McCarthy came on Thursday. I seen some comments saying, he looked like he was blowing out his backside and all that. I didn't really see that. I think in that heat, when you're fair-haired, you're going to get, the rosy red cheeks and all that. He's born in Scotland and we're playing in 35-degree heat. So that, I think that was a load of nonsense. I actually thought he brought stability to the team when he came on, albeit I felt Betis maybe took their foot slightly off the pedal in the closing stages. I thought McCarthy, I felt much better when he was on the pitch than what I did with Soro. Yeah. See, the thing is with Soro, 8 minutes gone, you could have had an argument to take him off, but it's not realistic that you're ever going to see that. I'll be honest though, I would have took him off after that second bookable offence, because he should have been off. We would have been screaming for it the other way around. I would have took him off then. And I'd have said, look, and you know what? Teach him a lesson as well and go, you cannot keep playing for yourself like this. You are not following. I can't believe he doesn't play like he's following the strategy. And I've got no reason to doubt Postecoglou is meticulous when it comes to the on-field instructions these players have, because as we always say, that's where he likes to operate. That's where he's at home as a manager, is the on-field stuff. He'll have a strategy for what I nearly called him Canty there. I don't know where that came from. That'd be the compliment of the century. But for Soro would have, he's got an instruction. He's got to be following them. And he looks like he's all over the place. And not like Kyogo is. Kyogo's runs are made with purpose, but he is all over the place. Sorrow in his role, to me, is playing for himself. And the sooner we can get McCarthy up to speed, the better. And then once Calmac comes back in, you're looking at the options there, and perhaps just to tie it all up, then you've got the chance to rotate Turnbull and Rogic, because there is a bit in you, even though these guys are in their 20s and well-paid professional footballers, there is a bit in you that thinks, well, they'll not be able to do 40, 50, 90 minutes over a season. You just don't get that vibe off them. So the sooner we get McCarthy up to speed, I feel he's a much better option. I hope he has a great game today.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. When he came in, it was almost like an assurance he gave you, wasn't it? He knew he wasn't doing anything. Yeah, he wasn't doing anything fancy, Russell. He was getting on with it. I mean, vast experience for someone who's 30. But he made his debut when he was 15 for Hamilton Accies, and he's not played a great deal of football. The point I've got up here, he is still recovering from the COVID, which was diagnosed by Pat Bonner just the other week there. So yes, obviously he's recovering from that, but he's also not had a proper pre-season. And I know that players keep themselves fit and put themselves through a rigmarole, etc., but he's not had a full pre-season. So today, I think, is a great opportunity to get him in and get him 90 minutes. I agree with you on the Turnbull Rogic. What Rogic is bringing to the side now, again, I go back to what I said about Ajeti. He wasn't contributing, Russell. And while somebody's not contributing, you get to that stage where sometimes you even rip up their contracts, like the Encham situation. And he is now. He's contributing. He's looking good physically. And get as many 90 minutes out of him as we possibly can, so that it then becomes the norm. Because at 28, it would be nice for him to finish games and play 30, 40 games, rotate the squad. I don't think anybody should be expected to play 55, 60 games a season.
No.
Another thing, there's a couple of wee things on the bench I'll be talking about, but Abada and Jota, I'm glad to see them both starting, but I would also like to see them switching from time to time, because we've seen how effective Jota is on the right. I don't think we've seen that from Abada on the left, but he can play out left. So it would be good to see him switching, because we've had a real dearth of options on both sides, especially with a couple of injuries in the squad. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is as well, with Ajeti being the main striker and not Kyogo, delivering in the box is crucial, because that is, as we've already discussed, where he comes alive. And I think, add a bit of confusion to the mix. They're more than capable on either foot, I think, from what I've seen so far. I mean, I've not had a chance to talk about Jota because I've not been on for 2 weeks, but Jota, I mean, to me, looks like he's got all the technique in the world, Again, not a criticism, but I think he had to bury that chance to make it 3-0. I could have been talking a completely different way about Postecoglou away from home, and I don't think the word 0-0 would have got mentioned, or the term 0-0 would have got mentioned in the post-match comments either. So I'd like to see that more clinical edge. Jota needs to know that, unfortunately, you play for Celtic, there is such a high demand that those chances can't be sort of, just dinked for flair. Make sure you're finishing it first, and if it happens to be dinked that is the best option, be clinical, make sure it hits the back of the net. That was a real opportunity, but I have liked what I've seen from him, by the way. I actually think he looks like someone who's first team ready for us, and is going to excite the fans. Does he remind me a bit of Patrick Roberts? A wee bit. I think there's a bit of that in it, but I think he looks pacier. And again, I think you're absolutely right, though, about Abada. I would love to see him cutting in from the left onto his right foot. I want him to keep doing what he's doing, because he's got a good goal record right now. And I think, whilst we don't want to go Ryan Christie terminology and say shoot on sight Abada, I definitely think I'd still want him to be peppering the goal, because I think he's got an eye for goal, and I think he causes defences a nightmare, because see, when you can go on the inside at the pace he does, or you can go down the outside, and you're in the back of your mind, you're going, if he gets a shot away, it's going to be on target. That's a nightmare for defenders right now. And I think also with younger players, like a 19-year-old Abada, they play with a different type of mentality to what they do when they get older. Yeah, players get more experienced and maybe think their decision-making gets better, but that's because in experience you realise what the downsides are to trying something. Whereas a 19-year-old, they just play with such freedom that sometimes they're more edgy, and they're harder to deal with. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again, and he was missed on Thursday as well.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was. From the bench, it would be great to see Scales and Johnson. making appearances, I would suggest. Before we get to the action, Russell, a couple of shout-outs. I think you've got one yourself. I just want to give a big shout-out to the Whitburn boys who I met yesterday in Ely. Big Celtic men even, who are ACSOM fans, and one of them is the nephew of the late, great Bobby Murdoch. So big shout-out to the pair of you guys. It was brilliant to get a wee catch-up and talk Celtic with you. And I understand you've got one yourself, Russell, before we get to the action.
Yes, mate. I'm still trying to get used to, like, you know, what my pose is for these selfies I'm getting asked for, Paul. You know, I'm not. I'm teasing him. Well, there's been a couple, but I got a message from a guy I've not seen in about 6 or 7 years, called Gavin Lee Bell, sitting with his Mrs. Lisa, and he goes, mate, he was a customer, right, of mine at the pub, and he got back in touch on Facebook to say, we watch ACSOM every single day, mate. Cannot believe that you're on it. He was like, he's a shout out, mate, and he goes, I love the show. So I think sometimes, Paul, it's important that in amongst all the negativity that can happen in the comments, if people want to slag off your hair or whatever sad thing it is they want to focus on other than the football, I think it's nice to share the positivity as well. And a lot of people are obviously enjoying the content, mate, and kudos to yourself and everyone else in the team. Someone
asked earlier on, Russell, about this top. So just to let you know, it looks a wee bit grey, but it is beautifully resplendent and it's green. But this studio makes you look a bit grey. You know, I look a wee bit grey from time to time. And this is part of the prize giveaway. All you need to do is subscribe. We're 80 subscribers short of 15,000 on YouTube. Get on the YouTube page, subscribe. And this is one of 4 jerseys we're giving away this month. These framed pictures will also be given away in the future. We've got framed Celtic jerseys signed by the Lions, etc., etc. So get involved and we'll be giving away free gifts. Let's go to the action, Russell Boyce, and see how Celtic do in the first half. Join us at half time on a Celtic